Hello and welcome back to the Red Path. Today we're going to look at how to future-proof your Chaos Space Marines for 9th edition so you can get a head start based on what we can predict the Codex will bring. So the Death Guard Codex is in everybody's grubby little hands now, and I've had some time to look through it properly. I think it's a great book that offers a lot of interesting options for Death Guard, and really provides some fluff to their gameplay outside of multiple levels of damage preventing dice rolling. But between it and the Space Marine Codex in particular, I think there are some things we can extrapolate and use to prepare ourselves for a Chaos Space Marine Codex, whenever Games Workshop sees fit to announce one at least. At the time of recording, Drukhari are the only codex fully confirmed to be coming out soon, with the Warzone supplement tentatively scheduled for some time. We are still left with at least 16 books to release after Drukhari, and that's assuming all factions from 8th will get a release, which I'm pretty sure they will, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see supplements for some factions, and probably a new codex or two. I fully expect a Lost in the Damned style release separate from Chaos Space Marines, perhaps combining Dark Mechanicus and Traitor Guard, which would be absolutely amazing and cause me to get another mortgage. But for now, let's look and see what we can do to ensure our World Eaters and Chaos Marines are properly ready for a Codex release in the next few months. I'll throw timestamps up on the screen now, first for looking at how detachment restrictions might affect us, then for Legion traits and abilities that should carry over somewhat, then for datasheet clues. If I remember, the timestamps will also be in the description. Before you skip ahead though, please consider making one more click on that subscribe button. I really appreciate all of you that watch the channel, and for a YouTuber, analytics are like real life RPG stats. I've got to keep grinding to max out my speechcraft so I can unlock the negotiations with GW trait. Okay, so first up is the probable restrictions to detachment building. The Death Guard Codex has the rule Diseased Minions, where for a Battleforged Death Guard army, you can have a number of Plague Followers, that is, cultists and Poxwalkers equal to the bubonic Astartes units. Essentially, units like Plague Marines and Blight Lords are bubonic, so if you have 3 Plague Marines, you can have up to 3 cultists and up to 3 Poxwalkers. I expect this restriction will carry over, as this reduces cultist spam, which has been historically powerful for some legions, Alpha Legion Iron Warriors and Black Legion in particular. I would like to see Alpha Legion and Word Bearers be able to sidestep this, however, as lore-wise both those legions use mortal followers very specifically in the ways they wage war, albeit differently from each other. The next restriction is Infernal Jealousy, which restricts you to 1 lord per detachment, including princes. I get where they're going with this and kind of understand it, I just think it could be delivered a little better. Certainly for fluffy games, 1 lord per detachment or even army makes sense, but for organised play, I think easing it up in say brigade detachments might be worth it, as it currently de-incentivises you from taking more than 1 detachment. Admittedly, elite factions should cater more to small strike force type formations, so I don't know. But I do expect it will carry over. Not a big deal for World Eaters though, as both the Exalted Champion and Dark Apostle and even Master of Executions have places in our lists. Lacking the Sorcerer option though does force our hands somewhat. As for Fetid Virion, which allows multiple elite characters to only take 1 slot, this may happen in some way, as I could see the Exalted Champion and Master of Executions moving to the elite battlefield role, and it's always possible we'll get some new models to bolster the options. Adding Greater Possess to this starts to create an opportunity for slot management for sure. The last detachment ability is Inexorable Advance, which is the Legion trait, and it does buff vehicles. It's a little weird, but at the moment everything counts as having remained stationary, which means infantry don't suffer penalties for heavy weapons, and probably a few other buffs sprinkled in. Vehicles don't get penalised for firing heavy weapons at engagement range, and infantry can ignore modifiers to movement, advances, charges, etc. Monsters, swarms and maybe a couple of other categories just get stuck with the initial buff, but I think that balances out overall, so we can expect some sort of boon to our vehicles and demon engines eventually. Now, looking at how stratagems may affect our list building and model purchases, I'm going to highlight a few that are likely to translate over in some form to a regular Chaos Space Marine decks. Fire Fever looks to be an awesome buff to Hellbrutes. Focusing fire on one enemy allows +1 to hit and to wound. If they're below 7 wounds, they'll also reroll 1s to wound, and they also gain core, so it's possible they can hit on 2s, reroll 1s, they'll be wounding models like Mortarion on 2s with a double las cannon, and they'll be rerolling 1s. This is a really nice strat, and I think Hellbrutes are going to be good for Chaos Space Marines soon. So stonks wise, bye. Eternal Hatred is basically Veterans of the Long War for infantry only, and it is 2 CP. So it's good, but reduce the weight you've put into vets in list building. It either promotes larger blobs for CP efficiency or focusing points on other units, like Hellbrutes. Champion of Disease allows certain relics to go on champions. It's possible we'll be putting Gorefather on a Berserker champion. Oh yeah. Plague Chosen also allows you to take a second Warlord trait. This is something that would massively benefit World Eaters, as we do like our fighty killy HQs. The inclusion of Deadly Pathogens also bodes well for us, as it indicates we'll get to slightly buff characters and unit champions, some of them at least, for points with stuff like additional AP on weapons or mortal wounds on 6s. This could be very helpful on Berserker champions. Imagine getting something ridiculous like access to a 3-up invuln save on them. The last bit before we move into data sheets is Legion abilities. As we all know, Death to the False Emperor and Hateful Assault are gone, but the Death Guard kept Malicious Volleys and modified Disgusting Resilient. They gained Remorseless, which helps them not to flee, and they kept their Plague Weapon ability as well. To me, this indicates that all Chaos Space Marines will keep Malicious Volleys, and whilst 8th edition gave more flavour to Monodex Legions anyway, the 9th edition Space Marine Codex gave almost all entries and they shall know no fear, Bolter Discipline, Shock Assault and Doctrines. This strongly supports Chaos Space Marines getting some modifier to leadership, as Remorseless is the same as and they shall know no fear. We should keep Malicious Volleys and perhaps swapping out Death to the False Emperor for each legion getting a flavoured equivalent to Disgustingly Resilient and or Plague Weaponry. Honestly, I think World Eaters should have Death to the False Emperor, but against all enemies, all the time. But we'll see. It's a little wish listy to be fair, but I am confident that GW is pushing balance with their codexes, so I think we'll at least see a semblance of it this time around. Now, onto models and units. As covered before, check out this video for details, the Demon Prince is remaining practically the same, barring restrictions on spam. I have mine modelled with dual claws, but as I modified the old badass metal model, I can easily magnetise a sword or axe option. The regular Lord looks to be keeping all options, so you shouldn't have any issues. However, the Death Guard version has no option for jump packs. This may be due to keeping DG fluffy, but we'll see. The Terminator Lord, however, has changed to only allow options from the Games Workshop Terminator Lord kit. Only Combi Bolter or Combi Melter as ranged options, and Power Axe, Chain Fist, Power Fist, or 1 or 2 Lightning Claws for melee. This fits the theme of GW pushing squad builds with parts available in kit, so let's look deeper at this and how it's going to affect us. The Hellbrute will most likely retain all options except the dual Scourge. It has also disappeared in the latest FAQ and it's not an option for Death Guard. All standard vehicles, Land Raiders, Predators, Rhinos, Defiler, all of those remain fairly normal from what I can tell from the Death Guard Codex. It is possible, unless we get new models released, that the following changes will happen. The Chaos Lord will only be able to carry a Thunder Hammer and Plasma Pistol. The Jump Lord will only have access to a Spear and Lightning Claw, or 2 Lightning Claws. The Terminator Lord, as I mentioned above, will only have access to a couple of combi weapons and a few melee options. The Exalted Champion may be reduced to just a Power Axe and Bolter, and this is based on the Aspiring Champion model. Berserkers. Okay, here's where it gets rough. Unless we get a new kit, we may have to go to Bolt and Pistol and Chain Weapon. Up to 6 axe and 6 swords with up to 3 plasma pistols. This would dramatically alter the landscape for many World Eaters players, as I know many of us build strategies around axe sword berserkers. I'll deal with it if it happens, but it would be quite upsetting to be restricted based on an old model line. Chaos Space Marines. It looks like for a unit of 10 you will have to have 1 heavy and 1 special weapon, with only 7 bolt gun or pistol sword options. The champion will also have to take either an axe or maul and a combi weapon or pistol. The squad will therefore contain the champion, a special weapons operator with plasma or melter, and a heavy weapon operator, and then up to 7 bolt gun or bolt pistol marines. However, the blurb on the GW website says it was built to be compatible with the Havoc box, so it's possible we can swap in other options, other than the missile launcher and heavy bolter from the box. Speaking of Havocs, they come with 2 autocannons, 2 las cannons, 2 missile launchers, and 1 Reaper chain cannon, alongside various special weapons for the champion. This indicates that you won't be able to spam Reapers or las cannons per squad now, and we will have to move toward diversity in our formation. This will begin to favour missile launchers again in my opinion, as they can already do well against multiple unit types. So, I think 2 missiles and perhaps 2 autocannons gives the best balanced approach, as autocannons, whilst lacking AP, aren't terrible against light vehicles and have okay rate of fire for blobs. Terminators is where the World Eaters are going to get hurt the most, I think. Per 5 models, it looks like we will only have the ability to take 2 claws on one model, or possibly to be able to split them on 2 models so we can take 1 each with a combi weapon. This will mean 3 or 4 models will need to take other weapons like the chain axe, maul, sword, power axe, etc. This isn't bad per se, but I prefer to keep my weapon options equal across the squad for tournament play, as it massively speeds up dice rolling when I have 5 models equipped the same, as opposed to 2 that hit with a -1 for unwieldy, another one that wounds lower than the others, and so on. It's going to be a challenge. I believe there are 2 combi flamer parts, 2 combi melters and 1 plasma option, and obviously 5 for the combi bolters. On to fast attack now, and the Raptors Warp Talons kit is going to be one of our most valuable, I predict. Currently Raptors are awesome for World Eaters, and Warp Talons are okay. They essentially cost the same as a Raptor, just upgraded with dual lightning claws, but swap out the -1 leadership modifier, which isn't great, for a no Overwatch on Deep Strike, which is worse. Given that a 9-inch charge isn't that likely, and Overwatch isn't common anymore, and no one's going to bother spending the CP against something that can't be hit anyway. I think both units will get reworks ability wise. I'd like to see Raptors actually make a difference to leadership, and Warp Talons become truly threatening from Deep Strike, perhaps able to drop in 6 inches away, or have the ability to essentially teleport 9 inches away from enemy units anywhere on the battlefield instead of moving, demonstrating their apparent lore ability to literally rip through the warp with their claws. Model and weapons wise, you obviously get 10 claws, making Talons still extant, and you get 5 bolt pistols and chainswords, making a cheap squad of Raptors still viable, as well as a few special weapons, a plasma, a melter, a flamer, and 3 plasma pistols with some melee upgrades for the champion. I expect combi weapons on the champion will go away, but the option to run 2 specials, just mixed, in a squad of 5 might remain, as well as 3 plasma pistols on the squad. It's possible, though unlikely, they will combine the Raptors and Warp Talons into a single unit that can mix and match claws and pistols, but I really don't see that happening. Finally, Chaos Bikers. If we look at the kit itself, it doesn't seem to have any options aside from the combi bolter on the bike itself. The Loyalist rules allow the Sergeant and Marines to replace their bolt pistol with various special weapons, as with the previous edition, but the model is no longer available at gamesworkshop.com, so it's likely preparing for legendary status in my opinion. Honestly, I think Chaos Space Marines will either get some new model releases this edition, replacing Berserkers, Bikes and a few other units, or this too will be a last hurrah for various kits. It makes sense with Loyalists who are going pro-Maris across the board, and we've seen some brilliant changes in our model line, Marines, Terminators, etc., but it's just so hard to predict. Rules wise, we may get lucky with bikes and be allowed to run special weapons and chainswords, but don't be surprised if we get restricted to just the combi bolter on the biker and bolt pistols as sidearms. So all in all, the biggest changes I see affecting us is how we can run Terminators, Havocs, the Exalted Champion, and of course Berserkers. Depending on how the equipment for Berserkers is determined, and of course if we get a new model, a squad of 5 will still be able to run all axe or all sword, but we may just have to choose between them and add a pistol. The axe offering +2 strength now means we can have a squad of close quarter combat autocannons running around, or opting for the chainsword for real crowd control. Means we have choices to make at least. I still hope we get a special kit that provides some heavy melee options. At this point, I think if I mention that every video, eventually someone at GW will hear it and consider it a good idea. Okay, I've tried to cover everything I think we can glean from Death Guard, Loyalist Marines, GamesWorkshop.com's model availability and everything else to predict what our datasheet restrictions will look like. Given this, we can be fairly certain in our preparation for a Codex to make sure we don't throw out those old bits or double down on magnetising any unbuilt Terminator squads we have sitting around. I wouldn't go chopping up any models just yet, but I would begin steeling yourself mentally to do it if it does become necessary, or just play with people who are less concerned about WYSIWYG. I'm fortunate that I already magnetised my Terminators and have plenty of Raptors built with the options I might want to run. I will likely get some more Warp Talons at some point, as I'm really hopeful they're going to be killer with just a little tweaking. I only have 3 bikes painted, but they all run melters, so hopefully we keep that option. Berserkers, oh boy. I hope I don't need to add bolt pistols across the line unless a new model with more versatility comes out, but we'll see. Fortunately, I kit bash most of my HQ, so I've got a wide variety of weapons pre-modelled, so I'll be okay there. Let me know in the comments which kit would frustrate you the most if it became viable only as it's packaged. Be interesting to hear what the community's thoughts are on it. That about wraps it up for today. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down. As ever folks, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.